welcome back. I'm Christy, your host of Giving Tree Surrogacy's podcast from Bump to Bond. And today I am joined by some of our outreach team members on the surrogate side. And first being Michelle Molina, one of our surrogate outreach consultants. Welcome. And Caroline Gerber, the surrogate outreach manager. So thank you both for joining. And today we're going to be talking about frequently asked questions from our surrogate applicants. And so I'll start with Michelle. This is the first time that we've had you on the podcast, but you've been here for years now. We're so excited to have you and welcome. You bring such a positive energy to our team and women love connecting with you. Can you give us a little bit of backstory about how you kind of came into this type of job?
Honestly, first, thank you for having me here. Honestly, I was nervous at first, but I'm honestly really, really excited to be here and to be part of this. Honestly, coming from a marketing background, I would never have thought that I would be here today, just connecting with people, talking about surrogacy, getting into this field that I think it's beautiful and amazing, and just meeting new people every day. I'm always thinking about myself as a people person. I like to talk, I like to listen to people, and I think that when I got the opportunity to start working in this field at first, I didn't understand it. But now that 3 years later, like close to 3 years later, honestly, I think it's one of the most beautiful things that I have ever seen. It's just more than just surrogacy, it's helping people. That I think that's something that I've always been and interested in. Like my parents are doctors. I have a medical family, so I'm into that giving side of things. So I love it.
What would you say is your favorite part of your job?
I think hearing everyone's stories, like just, it's always something new for sure. I think can test for that it's something new. It's always something different. Just hearing about everyone's stories, all the different types of people that we meet each day, everyone. It's just, some of them are really grateful to just do this process. Some of them have their own personal stories with fertility. Some of them are experienced surrogates that have done this for 4 times already, and they're just trying to do this again. And I think it's amazing. I think that's my biggest take from this job.
Yeah, and I think one common thing that everyone has at the end of it is that they're giving, and like you said, it's such a giving process and type of work for the candidates and for the team members on the agency side. So Caroline, welcome back. Do you want to give just a little bit of background information about your experience and what kind of brought you to this type of work as well?
Sure. Yeah. So my background is in psychology. My first career out of college was actually child protection work. So working for the state, removing children from unsafe environments, neglect, abuse, things of that nature, and working with foster families, working towards reunification with families or adoption. It was a very heavy line of work. I loved it very, very, very much. I was very passionate about it. But at a young age, I burned out pretty quickly. And so I sought out other ways, similar to Michelle. I love to help. I love people. I love the family unit. I'm very, very passionate about the family unit. And so sought out other ways to be involved in that type of work. And so ended up in the nonprofit world for a few years. And that's a challenging place to work, fundraising, and it's hard. And it just wasn't quite in line with what I was passionate about, I think. And so I completely stumbled upon this line of work, which I think is kind of common. We hear that from people. Either they're experienced surrogates and they choose to enter into this field of work, or you totally stumbled upon it by accident and it's like the biggest blessing in your life then. Yes, and that was me as well. I stumbled upon it, and I took the opportunity and ran with it. And this is year 5 now of me working in this industry. And Michelle hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's just listening to the stories that each woman brings to the table, and everyone has a different background, everyone has different passions, and getting to know those people and being a safe place for those people in pursuing this has been
Mhm.
a beautiful thing. And I'm back to doing what I love, and instead of preserving families or helping families, I'm helping build families. And there's nothing greater than that. So it's amazing work.
I love that. Well, we're lucky to have both of you on the team, and any applicant that gets to speak to either one of you is lucky as well. And it gives everyone the opportunity to tell their story of what brought them to this. And I always find that really interesting, of how people get to this place, whether it's an applicant or an employee. So the first FAQ, I think I will have Michelle take this one about what the relationship with the intended parents will be like for a surrogate. That's definitely a big one, of who would I work with as a surrogate?
I think that is the biggest question I receive every day. Like, they're nervous at first, like, oh my God, what if the family doesn't like me? What if I want to talk to them? What if I want, I want a relationship with them, or they're just really respectful and they don't want that? Honestly, that's completely up to them and the intended parents. Of course, some surrogates and some intended parents could build that close relationship. I know we all have seen that before. I even
Mhm.
saw one surrogate that did like a photo shoot with intended parents, like a maternity photo shoot. So I
Yeah.
think those are beautiful cases. Of course, there's other type of parents and surrogates that would prefer a more structured, more limited communication, because of course that's everyone's choice. Some
Mhm.
of them already know that they're going into this process as as just this person that will bring this miracle to my family, and I want to be there for them. But some of them honestly do want to have that really nice relationship. But during the
Mhm.
matching process, of course, everyone discusses that, like what type of relationship you want to have with them. And even we go into those preferences in your first interview. We ask you, how do you feel about what kind of communication you want to have with them? Some of them would like, to talk every day, to just have updates on ultrasounds, appointments, um, so that relationship can feel comfortable and nice to all parties, of course. So honestly, I think there's not like a right level of relationship or communication to everyone, because everyone is different. But I think for me and my side of the story, I always hear surrogates wanting to have, a close relationship, or just, to
Mhm.
see that the parents feel involved and they're just not like
I think
taken
it's a
away.
great point that you bring up, that we ask the surrogate that, of, we're asking the intended parents that, and they have preferences, but we're asking the surrogate too. So we're going to match them with someone who shares those views. And, to be honest, sometimes that can change too. And that's okay. If you say, I don't really know what to expect in a relationship with intended parents. So I'm open to whatever it develops into or doesn't. I'm open to that. So women do say too that they're unsure, and that's an okay answer too.
As well. Like I always say, I always compare it. I don't know if it's the best like comparison, but I always tell them, like, at first when you get into that match meeting with the parents, it's like a blind date. Honestly, you don't know what to
It is.
expect first. So you see a profile, and then you do all this, and then you go into that match meeting not knowing what to expect from them. I always encourage all my surrogates to have like a list of questions. Even I always tell them, don't make it just pregnancy related. Ask the
Hmm.
parents, what do they like to do, hobbies, things like that. So
Yeah.
they get to know them a little bit more, and get that insight on the things that they could like, on what type of relationship they might want ahead of this process.
Yeah. Okay, Caroline, the question, do I need to take medications in this process? And if so, what does that process look like?
Complicated question, but the basic answer is yes.
Yeah.
99.9% of IVF clinics are going to have a pretty standard med regimen. It could be a combination of oral pills, injections, suppositories, patch it. Truly, it could be any combination. And it is based on each individual's body and baseline where they sit naturally. But most IVF clinics have a standard med regimen that's followed. And it can be an intense part of this process. I like to tell my candidates that I don't want to tiptoe around that topic. It can be a challenging part of the journey. On average, it's about 3 to 4 weeks before an embryo transfer can occur, and sometimes up to 8 to 10 weeks after transfer. That's a good chunk of time. So just being really mindful of that, and trying to ingrain that in early conversation. Yes, this is a part of the process, but you're surrounded with support during that time. Whether it's the IVF clinic nurses doing some education with you on what that looks like, whether it's our case managers supporting you through that. We also have a fabulous support group that meets the last Thursday of every single month virtually. And these kind of topics are what's talked about. How do you support each other through that? How can you cheer each other on? Injections are always a hot topic during that, but you have support through that whole process. But meds and injections are expected.
Yes. Like you said, not the most enjoyable part of the process, but part of the process, to be honest, so that no one's shocked when their IVF clinic is prescribing these medications to them and they have a fear of needles and are really worried about doing that. And I think hearing from other women that have gone through it and just having someone to say, did you experience, like for my journey, I got like knots under my skin. Like I could feel it in the muscle. And I'm like, is this normal? Am I doing the shots wrong or something? Just to hear from other women that say that's normal. Of course, you can ask your IVF clinic. The nurses are all there. So they're there to support you too. But yeah, not the most fun part of the process.
No, but we get you through it.
We get you through it. Yeah.
If you're really passionate about doing this, it's kind of the bitter pill that you have to swallow. But I think I've heard a lot of, especially, and you can speak to this, Christy, repeat surrogates who come back and you talk meds and injections. They're like, yeah, it wasn't fun. It was fine. It's kind of a distant memory that they're like, I got through it. It was fine.
Yes. Yeah. I think I would compare it to when someone goes through a tough delivery and then ends up having another child and someone says, well, how would you go through all of that again, the sleepless nights? And that's just natural human instinct, I think, to forget the hardest part of it because it's so worth it in the end. And so seeing the intended parents with their baby or their babies, you totally forget a distant memory.
Yeah.
Another question is, will I be related to the baby? Caroline, do you want to take that? It's kind of the medical route, so we'll just go with that again.
Yeah, absolutely not. So we work with gestational surrogacy, which is we're utilizing the surrogate's womb to carry the baby. They are the incubator, and the sperm and egg either come from mom and dad or donor. So no genetic contribution from the surrogate in this process. Traditional surrogacy, however, there is that genetic tie because they are utilizing the surrogate's egg. But our agency does not represent traditional surrogacy. We just represent gestational surrogates.
Yes. Michelle, how do I know the baby is going to good people and will be loved?
This is one of the other biggest concern I get from a lot of people because, of course, it's like I first said, you go into this process, of course, wanting to help someone that you don't know nothing basically about. But honestly, it is really common that people have that concern. The intended parents go through extensive screening before doing this, like psychological, medically, physical, basically. And they do spend a lot of time deciding this process, doing this. They have a lot of conversation about their values, about their parenting goals, everything. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, their readiness for surrogacy, because I think nobody prepares you to be a parent. Um, so this is around the time that you would feel they're preparing you, but honestly, still, you never know what to expect when you become a parent. So that's why our matching process exists. And I think you guys can really know about that as well, because in matching, they do ask a lot of questions about the parents. That's why we make the profiles. That's why we share those profiles with the surrogates. And we always have basically a time and a space for the surrogate to ask the questions, honestly, to choose if those parents are going to be a right fit as well. That,
Mm-hmm.
again, when those questions that I always tell the surrogates to have before the call are really important, because they can know a little bit about the parents, and they can know, like, honestly, and I do think that's true because it happens to us when we do the interviews and everything. If they're going to be the right fit for this
Mm-hmm.
process, and for them, of course, to be working with them. Of course, they're
Yeah.
never expected to move forward if they don't feel comfortable and confident that the parents are going to be a good fit for them. But that's why we always give them the opportunity of choosing again.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know how this process is going to turn out. But I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that these parents have waited for a long time to build their families. And a lot
Yeah.
of them have beautiful stories. Even people that were able to have children before, and then something happened, a complication happened. And that's why they're doing surrogacy. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
has different story. That's why I always say to the candidates that just try to choose to which one you connect the most. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you connect to this person that already had children before, and now she wants to have another baby, and maybe she can't, and you connect with that, do it. If not, we can always find someone else that will attest for what you're looking for in this process.
Yeah, I think the profiles are a really good place to learn more about the intended parents or the surrogate, and just kind of normalize that these questions go both ways. Intended parents are wondering or worrying the same thing about this surrogate. And so even for surrogates to hear that it's not just you, it's other surrogates are asking these questions, and intended parents are asking these questions about their surrogates too, because no one knows what they don't
No
know. So
Yeah, and no one knows. And if you always like try to find like another reason to not like someone or to like someone, it is honestly depending on each person. You never know how everything is going to turn out, but you always
yeah.
think they're doing this process for the best, and because they're going to love that baby. And as well for the parents, I think the parents have also that concern. Oh, is my baby going to be like, in a safe environment? Is this person going to love it as well? Because it's, as you know, like emotionally, babies can feel things inside us.
Mhm.
You're not,
Yes.
if you're not, actively loving that baby, it
Mhm.
would be like the parents would feel bad, because of course it's their
Yes.
baby. They want it to be, grown into a nice place. Like I always say to my candidates, basically like they're the oven in this process, a nice, safe oven, really warm, really nice. And so they have to prepare it and love it and nurture it so that cake can be beautiful and wonderful.
I love that.
I think
Yes.
something you spoke to, Michelle, that really resonates with me is the amount of preparation that goes into a surrogacy journey for these parents. I personally just experienced some dear friends who are having to pursue surrogacy because of medical complications on her end, and they're at the very beginning phases of this process of the egg retrieval, of freezing, creating embryos. it is not easy. Just to start this process at that point, it is not easy. And that's something I keep in mind when we receive that question from candidates is these parents have gone through the ringer, and it is not easy to get to this point of even selecting a surrogate. And that it brings me reassurance, and I hope it brings reassurance to candidates as well, that it's not easy to get to that point.
Yeah, it is. It's giving up a lot. They're usually in this process for years, creating embryos, potentially, depending on the situation, if they attempted pregnancy on their own. So they've had losses that they've experienced. There are all kinds of backgrounds that we see. And I think that's also an interesting part of our job, seeing intended parent profiles. I'm sure that both of you have seen profiles that you're like, I want to be their surrogate. They're just, your heart goes out to them. And so do you have those feelings where you're like, she's going to love this profile because they are so amazing, I want to help them?
I remember when I first... Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah. So I remember, I think you're going to tell basically a little bit of, it's going to be a similar story to mine, but I remember the first time I shared a profile with a surrogate about like the intended parents and everything. I was in the call as well. I was part of the matching call. I almost cried the entire match meeting. And I was so ashamed because, of course, it was my first time in there and they were telling their story. I already told the surrogate like a little bit of a background from them and everything. And she was already emotional as well. So that first match call for me was, since I'm always at the point of view of the surrogate, it was a totally different experience for me, knowing how these parents also get their hopes up. Sometimes their journeys, and not with surrogacy, with their own journeys, with fertility, with creating the embryos. Maybe they're not a good quality, or they have to spend a lot of more time doing that, or just just emotional tests that they have each day with fertility. It was for me something so beautiful and so rewarding that they were able to find surrogacy and do this and pick that surrogate that they felt that it was going to connect to them as well as they connect with the process. So I think seeing that point of view of all the surrogates every day, and now that we're able to see their parents' profiles as well, it's just something that connects the dots perfectly. So we know already whenever I think that happens to me. I don't know if it happens to you, Caroline, that now that when I'm, talking to a candidate, I already know if they're going to be connecting with those intended parents or which type of intended parents like the most.
Yeah, for me, it was closer to the beginning of my work here, actually. And it's what made this work feel more meaningful. At first I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. This is cool. And it wasn't until I saw that first intended parent profile, and it was a letter to the surrogate explaining the fertility challenges that they had. It was secondary infertility. Well, rather, she had cancer, could no longer carry, and lost one of their children as well. And so reading that, I was sobbing sitting at my computer. I was just like, I'm part of this. I get to be a part of this. And it was one of the surrogates that I worked with and onboarded, and I loved her. And so it was just from both ends. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. They're going to build a family together. And it was a very emotional experience, and it made this work very real. And I knew I wanted to be in it for a while after that experience.
Yeah, that they're real people. They have real experiences that, Michelle, I think you called it like an emotional test that they've been through multiple times, that so many people should not have to go through all of that. And to be even a small part of turning things around for them and making dreams come true. Like it really never gets old. And I think keeps such special people in this industry that are drawn to those positive outcomes, and just the human experience, I think, is what brings us all together. So the next question is regarding emotional attachment to the baby. So some women will worry that they may get too emotionally attached and they don't know that they could give up the baby. How do you respond to that?
Well, honestly, I think it's not a bad thing. Like, I think the emotionally side of things, it's not that, oh, I want to keep this baby, I want to have it for myself. I think the feeling that they may be describing is that they're feeling proud of doing this process. They're feeling
Yeah.
protective of that baby, and of course fulfilled that they're bringing someone's family dream come true. Basically, they're building this family. So it's completely normal. I always say to all the candidates, because that's something that a lot of them like tell me
Mm-hmm.
in the meeting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I'm too emotional, I'm too sentimental to do this process because I know I'm going to love that baby. And I'm like, why do you see that as a bad thing? It is completely
Yeah.
normal to feel protected. You like connection because you're going to be pregnant, but not as a like not as a something that you're gonna be keeping or something that it's gonna be for you. It's for someone else. It's like for me, I always like gifting. I don't know why I don't like to receive gifts, but I like gifting. So a lot of people feel that this
Mm-hmm.
is a gift that they're bringing to a family, and of course, you as a surrogate go into a process with a clear understanding on what you're going to be doing and that you're going to be helping someone grow their family. And of course, in this process there's psychological screenings. It's There's going to be ongoing support for you each step of the way. As Carolyn was saying, we have our support group that it's amazing. We have I see surrogates from every stage of this process supporting each other. Like, we have experienced surrogates that are starting the process. Some of them are already delivering, and everyone is just bringing each other support. That I think that's the most beautiful thing, and that's why the connection that you feel is more as a protection. Of course, emotions are gonna come along, but when you watch the parents meet their child for the first time, it's a powerful and fulfilling experience that of course it's going to bring closure for them and
Mm-hmm.
joy rather than just losing a baby or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think emotions getting into this process, it's not something bad, because of course it's always going to be a protection, of course, of that pregnancy.
Yeah, I like the way that you reframe the conversation of it's not a loss here, it's a gain. To feel those feelings, we don't need to say that you're not going to feel connected to a baby you're carrying. That's not what we're saying, but there
Yeah.
is a distinct difference of knowing going into this process, knowing that you're not genetically related to the baby in any way. And that's why we also encourage relationship building, to whatever degree they've agreed upon, because the more connected you are to the surrogacy journey and the intended parents, I think that helps kind of guide those emotions throughout the pregnancy as protection. I'm doing a job here. It's my job to keep this baby safe and to grow this baby.
Yeah.
And the end result is like the end of the race. That's the most rewarding part that they've waited for, is that moment to see the meeting between the parents and the baby. So it's very rewarding. And that was definitely my personal experience. Caroline, how would you add anything to that about having any kind of emotional connection or fear of an emotional connection to the
No,
baby?
I think you guys said it beautifully. I think it is important to be a warm and have emotions. During our personal pregnancies, we sing to the baby, we talk to the baby, we love, and that's part of that development in utero for baby.
Mm-hmm.
Want the same for the surrogate baby. The intended parents want the same for that baby. Um,
Yeah.
And so that's a very crucial piece. But that psychological evaluation being in place as part of our screening process is there to ensure that that candidates are in the right mindset going into this, that they're not overly concerned about a candidate being overly emotional or an inability to let go or things like that. So that protects both parties. So candidates will not be moving forward with medical processes if in that psychological evaluation those concerns arise.
And Caroline, can you kind of piggyback off of that for another question of surrogates wondering if there is a medical complication, is their health being prioritized when you're carrying a baby for someone? And that is a common question. I think that was something that in my early stages of applying to become a surrogate, I did wonder, what if something happens to me? Is my health prioritized, or is it the baby's health? And I at least kind of struggled through that a little bit, because you don't want to feel selfish, and you're doing this to bring a baby into the world, but you also have a family to think about and your own health to think about. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, there's a couple, and you said it, all of these candidates are mommies. They all have to go home to a family at the end of the day, and that's our top priority. And what protects them in that is legal contracts. Again, legal contracts are done before anything medical happens. This outlines and ensures that choices made protect the surrogate first and foremost, medically, So when it comes down to choices, that's outlined in the legal contract of health decisions. Health is the number one priority of our surrogates, and they're mommies. We got to get them home to their babies. Yeah.
I wanted to take
at the end of the day, we want them to go home to their babies.
Yes, we do. And I wanted to just share this QR code quickly here. If any of this resonates and you're interested in applying to become a surrogate with Giving Tree, you can scan this QR code and get connected to one of these lovely ladies. And we have another team member, Sarah, and everyone is knowledgeable and helpful and excited to share this experience with you. So, Michelle, did you have anything to add to how you ensure that women feel like their health and their well-being is being prioritized in this process?
I always make sure that they feel safe during this process. That's why we do all that screening beforehand. That's why I ask all of those questions that we do in those video chats. And at the end of the day, as I was saying before, we want them to go home safe to their babies and to their partners if they have partners, or to their families. Because of course we cannot do this whole process if we don't take into consideration that she's important, that she's gonna have to be healthy for this process, that at the end of the day, we want them to feel safe during this, that they don't feel that we're gonna be doing this against you or something. Not at all. That's why parents state that I was in that match call that I was talking before. That was one of the things that the intended mom said, that they want her, she wanted her to be safe, she wanted her to be healthy, and that just because that the mom couldn't, be a mom again, that doesn't mean that she was gonna, it was this exact words, that she was not gonna take someone else's mom just for her to have a family. So it was such an impactful moment in that call, that's the thing that I always tell my surrogates, that we wouldn't, put them at risk.
Yeah. And that's also a reason why there's a medical screening process, because we are requesting and having medical records reviewed for previous pregnancies and deliveries. And some women will ask, well, why do you have to do that? Why do we have to fill out screening. And the answer to that is because we are here to reduce risk, and we want to feel comfortable and confident that the IVF clinic will medically approve this candidate to move forward. And that is based off of previous records, current health, psychological health, mental health. And that's why it's not because, you know, we're judging in any way, because it takes a lot for someone to even apply. And so we're so grateful that women even consider this process, and don't want to feel like we're turning people away that have such big hearts. But that's a big reason why IVF clinics consider that, because we're looking to reduce risk and we want everyone to be safe. And so that's how you can eliminate the risk as much as possible, because sometimes things can happen and is out of anyone's control. But that's kind of the baseline, at least. Caroline, what if the intended parents decide they don't want the baby?
Another common concern I think we hear often, again, I think I've said legal contracts about 12 times in this episode, but legal contract is the protecting entity for both parties in this whole process. And that legal contract will outline the parents' legal responsibilities to this child, financial responsibilities to this child. That child is theirs and is their responsibility. So they are locked in. So that concern should be resolved with that legal contract.
Yeah. And kind of to speak to what Michelle brought up and we've talked about earlier, was that this is not a decision that someone wakes up one morning and just says, you know what, I'm going to have a surrogate and have this baby through surrogacy. It's not an overnight decision, like buying a new phone. It's a long process. And so I think, the answer to that really is we don't have that happen. We really have not had cases. I've been in this industry for over 10 years, and it just doesn't happen. It's kind of something that's more of a myth. And I think people think that is a reality, and we have to kind of dispel that yes, there are legal contracts in place just in case, because eventually there will be one case, I'm sure that's what we have protections there for. But the short answer is that it just really doesn't happen. They want this baby so badly. So, I think just kind of dispelling that myth, really.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad you said that, Christy, because I think that's been something floating around, whether it's blogs or, whatever it might be. That myth has been floating around for such a long time, and we don't see it. And, I think a lot of the times it's that one horror story that happened when things weren't executed correctly or procedures weren't followed, and that's just lived and floated around for years and years and years, but we do not see that happen. We have such tight processes in place now that they're protected. They are protected. Both parties are protected. Yes.
The importance of using an agency and having legal contracts in place, regardless agency or not. But like I said, at Giving Tree, we have not seen that happen at all. And so you'll have that protection and confidence in the agency that you're being represented by. And I think that's kind of our top FAQs. But I want to end this with saying to ask questions. This is not an exhaustive list of questions. We get all kinds of questions, and all of them should be asked and deserve to be asked. Don't ever leave something in your head that you don't just say out loud. Just ask someone. It's okay. It's not a dumb question, and could be the reason why you end up being a part of something that truly changes your life forever. So don't let something hold you back that, we can clarify and clear up for you and support you through it.
Exactly. It's what I always say whenever I get an application, or even just, a candidate just saying, hi, I just have a lot of questions. I just give a time of that initial video chat that we do, or just call that we do, that this is a time to ask questions, to, get all the information that you can get about this process, and, to be comfortable, to be, ready for the process. Because as you said, Christy, there's no dumb questions. Even if maybe in that initial call, you don't get any questions, you just want to know about the process, and then the questions come afterwards, completely normal. We don't mind. Yeah. We're just dictionary right now for this process. Whenever you feel even the smallest, or a question that you feel it was already answered, don't mind that. Just ask, because I think it's really important to get information from the right places. Not just like there was a time that someone said, like, oh, I saw a movie that it's called The Surrogate. Is the process like that? And I was like, it's not like that. So, saw on CSI that the parents didn't want it to be. So I was like, oh, no, it doesn't happen. I've never seen that. So no worries. Yes. Honestly, that's why we do this, just to keep you guys informed, to help you through this process and those concerns that may arise.
Yeah. And I love that you guys text back and forth with candidates, because that's just such a quick, accessible way for women to ask a question and get it out of their mind and not forget about it. So they can just send you a quick text message, and you can respond, and then they can reference back to it too, to say, oh my gosh, I actually forgot what she said about that. Let me just send her a quick text. And so you're so accessible, and so not only just a joy to work with and so knowledgeable, but the accessibility that women have to all of this information that you guys can share with them. I think that's such a strength and, nice feature that you bring to the table.
I'll also point out that we have quite a bit of time with the candidate. So from time of their application, interview to onboarding, we even keep that relationship. We're the direct point of contact through medical records, background checks, all the way until they're matched. And so we have all that time. Even if you have a little, element of uncertainty or questions that you still have, you have us for quite some time. And then even after that, we do not go away. So if we've built a beautiful relationship, and we can still chat, you can ask us questions. We're here as a resource to the candidates for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. And partner questions too, like
exactly, like anything that they need during that time. That's why we build that relationship from the start. Like maybe, oh, you forgot to tell me something at the beginning. It's not like, oh, we're lost, so we're never gonna communicate again. Right. You can just afterwards, or a question or a concern, or even I do give space, because a lot of people have the concern of maybe, giving the wrong information to their partners, if you have a partner, to their families. I always give a space to answer those questions to the partners. Or even I had a surrogate that wanted to bring her mom into the video chat as well, and I was happy to address any concerns and everything, because this the candidates also have family members that attest for them and are worried about them getting into the process maybe. So it's be that point of contact, and just to ease everyone's minds in this process, and just be an open book and a place and a safe space, basically, as you said at the beginning, to ask any questions.
Well, I'll share the QR code one more time. If you are interested in becoming a surrogate with Giving Tree, you can scan this QR code and be connected to one of our team members and learn more. So thank you, Michelle and Caroline, for joining. I really appreciate this episode, and I hope that it just opens up the conversation more to normalize these questions. These aren't weird questions, and hopefully it generates more questions too. And that's what we're here for. So thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christy, for having us.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it just as thought-provoking.